Hey, it's Betsy Jordyn. I am super excited to introduce you all to Charles Browne, the latest graduate from the Consultants Institute, who's got an amazing new business that he is launching. So welcome.
Hey, thank you.
So what I would love to do first is just take us back in time and tell us a little bit about your journey. So I know that you didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I want to start a consulting business. You've been thinking about it for a while. So take us back to your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the best way to describe it too. So I started my professional career in the Navy as a member of the Naval Nuclear Power Program. And when I left the Navy, I worked at a couple of commercial sites and then for a couple of OEMs, Westinghouse and GE. And through both of those processes, I served as an operator and then also as a project manager and then a master black belt, Lean Six Sigma process improvement black belt. But throughout my whole career, it's really, there's been this foundational understanding and this foundational love of performance improvement and human performance in particular. So during one period of unemployment between a couple of those opportunities, I was picked up by a consulting firm to do some Lean Six Sigma consulting. And it was the best, the most rewarding, the most energizing and exciting work I had ever done. The only downside to it at that time was I wasn't in charge of my own clients. I couldn't pick my clients. So on a few of those occasions, we had some corporate clients who just weren't really looking for change. They were just looking for some kind of an answer or to check off a box. So those very few engagements kind of turned me off to that big box consulting firm, which is why I chose not to stay. So yeah, just like you say, I kind of dabbled around a little bit once I did find permanent employment again. I did dabble around a little bit in some coaching and some consulting for friends and other small business owners in my neighborhood and in my area, trying to help them improve. And I got a lot of great results for them. And I did try on my own several times to put together a coaching practice and a consulting practice to help those types of people, but it never really took off. I was never really clear on exactly who I could help and what my real benefit in the market was, because I knew a lot of stuff. And when you meet at a networking event or you meet a small business owner who says they're having trouble with things, what you want to do is you want to fix it and you want to help them. And you've got this entire tool bag full of stuff that you think you can apply. But obviously I learned the hard way, if that's what you put on your shingle, it's really hard to make an argument for a business on how and why they need your help. So obviously I heard you on a podcast, I listened to you, I reached out, and I think it was probably within 2 or 3 days, we were on the phone together and I joined your program, and it's just a couple months later and I couldn't be more happy.
So this is so interesting. So we've got lots of different things to unpack in your story. So what I heard you say that got you into the desire to have your own independent consulting business, because I think there's a big difference between, hey, I just want to be a subcontractor with another firm, but I want my own gig, is it sounds like, one, you had a lot of experience just running businesses and being an operator. And then the second thing is that you started sort of operating as an internal consultant through your process improvement and the Six Sigma stuff and testing the waters with being a subcontractor, if you will, to a bigger firm. You really just couldn't have the influence. And that's when you said, I want my own shingle. I want to do my own thing. So did I hear that part right?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And there's another funny little thing that happened when I was that kind of consultant for hire, that contractor, was many of those clients engaged that consultant's firm for a particular business outcome. But what I found my real benefit was working with the executive team and teaching them how to coach and teaching them how to get the most out of their clients. And that was something that big box consultancy didn't offer. So it ended up being, and I swear to you, it ended up being nights and weekends and dinners with that executive staff outside of working hours, talking to them about those changes and how their leadership style was affecting their outcomes. So, yeah.
This is huge. So this is one of those things that I think is such an important point, is there's a huge difference between being a consultant for hire and an executive advisor. And they're not the same. And that even though you could have a big box firm going in, they're not really positioning themselves as an advisor themselves on the whole. So they're certainly not going to position you as the advisor. And it sounds like you saw that role to say, I want that role because this is the only way that I'm going to create change. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was starting to ruffle a few feathers because that particular firm had a workbook. They had a workbook. Day one you do this, you talk to this person. Day two you do this. Day three you do this, and that's not how I work. I'm all about the root cause analysis. I'm all about the problem statement, and I'm all about this really integrated approach to getting the entire workflow, the entire workforce together, working towards a common goal. Uh, I mean, you cannot be a big box consultancy and write a workbook that's going to fit for every single customer. It just doesn't work. So there were a lot of blanks in my workbook. When I would finish my engagements, the customers were utterly satisfied. Every single one of them, really, really energized, really excited about the future. I felt like they got a lot out of it. They learned a lot of things, but there were a lot of blanks in my workbook because there were sections that I knew, as you say, as an experienced operator and as an experienced business owner, that's not applicable. That's not going to help us in this situation. Let's just skip over that. We don't have to do that. So I was already starting to ruffle some feathers before I went on my own.
So it sounds like you're the kind of consultant, and I think you and I are both alike around this, is that sometimes giving a client what they want, even though that might make them satisfied, isn't giving them what they need, which is going to make them effective over the long run. And so as you looked at the organization, you're like, I don't want to settle for just giving a solution and just getting my paycheck. I want to go in there and solve the problems, and a cookie cutter solution isn't going to do that for you or do it for the client.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last step in any DMAIC process improvement is control, is to then go back and look at the process again, ensure that you actually got the result that you desired. So many of these organizations have really, really brilliant people in key positions, but they put so much pressure on themselves to come up with a solution that they don't go through all the steps that I would go through as an external consultant. So what they get are a lot of unintended consequences. They get a lot of root causes that aren't being solved. They look at a problem. They say, I remember, 21 years ago when I was in that position, we had that problem, and I bet it's because of this. Okay, let's hire a new person. We'll create this third role in between these two roles, and that'll solve the problem. And that's not always the solution. They get either, it's kind of a combination. They're either too far removed from the process these days. It's changed quite a bit. Or they get so focused in on one thing that they don't look at the whole organization as a whole.
So this is brilliant, because there's a lot of people that are out there who are probably listening in and saying, hey, Betsy, I just really want to subcontract because it feels like it's a lot safer. I don't have to risk the marketing. I could just find these firms and they'll send me in. And you saw firsthand that that's not necessarily a great model if you're somebody who really wants to solve organizational challenges and really wants to be that advisor and really wants to really make that kind of impact. It sounds like you want more than just making the money from consulting. You want to make that difference, and that's going to satisfy you at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to go too far off the path here, but I learned a lot about myself during that time. So I know from, a personal needs and a professional needs and an emotional needs perspective that I am never going to be happy opening up that cookbook and just flipping pages. I am off the scale high as a contributor. I have to contribute. So I'm a very results focused person. I don't care if it takes a day. I don't care if it takes 6 weeks. I'm really focused on what do we have to do to get that result. So yeah, I mean, I can see how in some organizations, we keep calling them the big box consultancies might make sense. But for my target audience, right, which are those mid-sized companies that have had some initial success, maybe they had a really great launch product and they're starting to expand that product line or that service line. They're hiring more people. They've just moved into a bigger space. Now, all of a sudden, their operations are getting very sophisticated. A big box is not really going to be able to help them because a big box assumes a certain level of operation. Well, when you're in that kind of gray area between, hey, we're successful, we're not idiots, we know what we're doing, we have a really great product, we have a really great mission, but we're not really being able to scale that properly because the stuff that used to work before, where there was, me and Jeff and Paula were doing this. Now all of a sudden it's me and Jeff and Paula and Ryan and Phil and and it's growing so much that you get kind of a dilution of that knowledge. So you really need to start to systemize what you do and how you do it, even the innovation. Those types of companies, you really need somebody who's going to dig in, who's going to spend the time to get to know the organization and really pull the thread on what makes them unique.
So I want to get to talking a little bit more about your ideal clients because you clearly got there, but I'm starting to see your path and your journey forward. Is it really started with, hey, I'm running a business or I'm running an operation and I can see ways to improve it. So then you move into the process improvement role and you're sort of as this internal consultant and you're offering the Six Sigma and other type of process support. Then you have experience working under a big box consulting firm as a subcontractor. And so then you got clear to say, you know what, I don't want to work for somebody else. I don't want to work for somebody else, even as a subcontractor. I want to do my own thing. So that seems like big decision number one is this is the right fit for me and I want to do it for myself. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a lot of your material that helped me understand that because, you know, if you Google how to be a consultant, you're going to get millions of hits.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much junk because it's really focused so externally on how to get clients or how they make money or what the earning potential is. It doesn't really spend the time like you do in your program to figure out what made me unique and what's going to keep me fired up. So running my business on my own, whether it's me or a small team of 2 or 3 of us, I've got to be excited about it. I've got to love that client. I've got to love what they do. The other training programs out there did enough. They didn't talk about any of that stuff. And that's where I kept getting hung up time and time again. I feel like I got to second base and then I just kind of stalled there. So that's why working with you one-on-one, we spent so much time talking about my backstory and not just my professional backstory, my personal life and what things motivated me and what things pushed me forward. And then once I understood me, laying out who that client was or what the value proposition to them was it was easy, right? I mean, we got to a point where it was like pop, like the dam broke and everything just flowed, including all my web copy, right?
So what would you say if somebody else is in the same boat to say, I think when you're presenting questions is like, I'm good at a lot of different things and I don't know how to narrow it down or I don't know how to focus it. Because that was the worry is I have to give up parts of myself. And I think you came to recognize like, I don't have to give up any part of myself. Like what made that shift and what would you recommend to somebody else who's struggling with that same question?
Yeah, so for a long time, again, you know, I kind of went on the cheap end, right? I started with an article, then a $5 ebook, then a $199, you know, strategy workbook. Yeah. And then, you know, and I kept trying to scale it up little by little by little. And I just got to a point with you. I mean, you know, my personal motivations for starting my business. I just decided I couldn't do it cheap anymore. I couldn't afford to do it the cheap way anymore because none of those processes have the perspective that you have on the market. Like, yeah, that's great that you know this, and this, and this, but you'll never sell that. That's not really a benefit to any business, at least not the businesses that you've identified you want to work with. So those are great, but let's pack those away. That's not your lead in. That's stuff that you're going to use very, very often. You helped me really say, oh my gosh, you are so unique in this way.
Yeah.
Your combination of experience is so unique in this way. That was absolutely the deal breaker. And for me, from considering internal consulting again and just kind of staying in the corporate world as an operations manager, you helped me see that, oh my gosh, like these are the people you can help. This is your absolute killer cornerstone skill set. And then you can build from there.
So if I were going to go back and say, all right, here's the big pillars that I heard in your big picture journey is one, you really got interested in the role when you're an internal person. You tried out big box stuff and you decided, nope, I want to do my own thing. Once you decided your own thing, kind of DIYing it on your own wasn't really working for you because you still got tripped up on the messaging and who that ideal client was. And then you got caught up. It sounds like you're a little bit caught in your head around like, okay, which skill do I lead with or what have you? And then when we got together, like I remember some of those early conversations, some of the questions you had was like, okay, I'm really good from the analytical side and I'm really good from more of like that communication side, the writing, you have all of this unique mix and you thought you had to choose. And at a certain point, it's like, well, the fact that you know all of this in between stuff is actually where your differentiated expertise lies. And that's actually what somebody who's in that growing phase really needs because they're not hiring a million consultants. They can't really afford the big bucks, or even as you mentioned, it's not even relevant to somebody who can get in there and get the operators to speak with marketing and the marketing to speak with sales and all these people to communicate is actually a competitive advantage. Like that's when I think your light bulb started. I don't know if that's accurate.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, all the all of the bargain consulting startups, they really push you to be a surgical instrument, this one thing, but you helped me see that I'm a human Swiss Army knife, and that's a great thing. Like, that
Yes.
can be an incredible thing. And now that I've embraced that, yeah, that was pretty big, significant breakthrough. Just having the confidence, right? So I have the confidence now. I can go into any organization. Maybe even, you know, in the past there were a few that might be a little intimidating. Not even a hesitation anymore.
So I love that. And I don't think we have the Swiss Army knife in any of your marketing copies. So let's just let's hold on that one, because I think we're definitely going to need to use that in the future. But I just want to ask you one other question. And this has been so helpful. And I know that for other people who are in a similar boat, but you're one of the few people that I know who really caught a vision and set the plans and actually implemented them before you actually had to move. A lot of people that I work with, they think about it for years and years and years. They don't put their business foundation in place, and then something happens where they lose their jobs or something gets redefined, and then they're in this, you know, really difficult scenario in the back end. What was it that you had that made you say, you know what, I want to take charge of this. I don't want to wait until something happens in the market. I don't want to wait till something happens to my job. I want to not just control my career in the future, but I want to take control of my career now.
Yeah, this hit me pretty hard during a job search. So I was laid off from one of those OEMs. They were great in that they tried to help me out a lot with the job search, and they connected me with a career coach and a resume writing service. And one of the exercises they had me do was sit down and write just a quick paragraph on your biggest wins as far back as you can remember, professional wins, right? So they were wholly focused on that. So I wrote 3, 4, 5, 6 good stories about incredible things that I did. And then I looked at them and I looked for the common theme. And the common theme was every one of those little projects that we'll call them, right? These little exercises or projects within my role, they were all a collateral project. They were all something that was outside of my primary role, right? So my primary roles were, I've been a senior project manager. I've been a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. I've been an operations manager. So those are all titles that I held, and you can imagine what those job descriptions look like. But all these like incredible gains and incredible breakthroughs that I've had for those employers or for any of my clients weren't under the umbrella of that job role. They were something else. There was a problem within the organization. There was some kind of challenge within the group or within the process that I was just sick of dealing with. And I went after them and I fixed them, and they became my greatest success stories. So when I'm doing that process to kind of fill out a new resume and start applying for new jobs in other organizations, I was like, there's no job description that can quantify that or that can capture all of those successes except a consultant, because now I can take those individual stories, go to separate businesses and separate organizations and have those incredible wins through them and not have to do any of the other crap, right?
Yeah.
All the stuff that I didn't want to do in my normal job. So that was part of it. And then the other part is, you know, my children live with their mother, and right now I'm on the other side of the country and I visit them as often as possible, and technology is wonderful. FaceTime is great, but I need the freedom. I need the freedom to be wherever I want to be, to earn as much as I need to earn, to be able to take them on vacations now that we're doing 2 vacations every year and 2 Christmases and all that stuff. So, you know, that was a pretty strong motivator as well. Being able to control how many contracts I have in a year, how much work I have. If I want to take a month off for them, then I can do that. So that type of freedom, and then being able to just fully 99% of the time doing the work that I really love.
So I hear so many things in the best practices, but it seems like you approached your business development in the same way that you did all of those other big wins that you had for your client, and you just got focused on solving the problem. So you got outside of your own head, outside of your own fears, and you just said, you know what, I'm going to tackle this from a problem standpoint, and I'm going to make sure that I'm focusing on tomorrow and what I want to create for tomorrow, make those decisions today, which I would say is the biggest thing that most people fail at. So you're about to launch your amazing website, and your website alone isn't going to bring you business. Like, we work really hard on this platform, if you will, but this platform is only going to work is if you work it and you continue to solve the problem. And that's what I think is so important about a marketing system. You know, the value of a good process. You put into play, you put the analytics. If it doesn't work, then you keep tweaking it. You don't just throw up the whole thing. So it sounds like you're approaching it from that standpoint, which I think is going to be huge for your future success.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm my own best client. I
Yeah.
mean, I do.
Yes.
I use the same tools for myself that I would use for any other client to exactly do that. To lay out, I did a SWOT analysis of myself. You know what I mean? I laid out
Yeah.
what so I'm very, very clear about what I don't want to do, what type of work I don't want to do, what type of clients I don't want to work with. I'm not going to waste time. So all of the website copy, all of my marketing material is going to scream to my ideal client, which, you know, everybody says you're supposed to do. It's easier to say than to actually do it, though, if you don't do the work up front and ahead of time. Because what you do instead is you try to write something that's really clever and really neat, but it doesn't resonate with the right people. Absolutely not. And then I also recognize, so there's a generic error model where you kind of map familiarity with a topic across from the attention. And I know that I'm very unfamiliar with this, launching a consultancy, but I'm hyper focused on how do I fix this problem. I know the number one tool when you're in that mental space is collaboration. So I look for somebody to collaborate with, and that was you.
This is awesome. Okay, one final wrap-up question. This has been so helpful, and I see so many things that are even replicable around your journey that other people can follow. But it's like, what is like one thing that if you're going to go back to early Charlie and tell him, you know, about what you've learned now, like what would you tell him to do differently or approach differently?
You know, it sounds like a cliche. It really does. And I think you and I have personally laughed about this, but I avoided my true self so much, trying to become something I wasn't, you know, the Swiss Army knife versus the surgeon. I tried to avoid that for so long. And I tried to force fit my personality, my experience, my passions into this box of what I thought a consultant was, instead of just building a practice around who I really am already. That's absolutely, it's the most freeing and the most exciting feeling that I've had professionally in a really, really long time.
And I could tell you there was a huge transformation. I mean, I'm so excited. Like from when we started to when your website started flowing, it's like you just became unstoppable. It's been so much fun to watch this transformation. So thank you so
likewise,
much
obviously.
Thank you so much for taking your time and sharing this information. And I just know you're going to be impacting so many other people who are in the same boat as you are. So thank you so much.
It was my pleasure, Betsy. Thank you.